Hello everyone. I can't believe we're doing this again, another midweek encouraging word. I think this is our fifth one so far. So let me give you some good news, first of all, about our church family, and that is we have a new covenant child at Christ Covenant, and that is John Riles Idson, was born on Monday to Hayes and Jesse. And so we rejoice with the Idsons. We can't wait to see that new little child, and of course, we're looking forward to the day when we get to see everyone back together in worship. Well, my encouraging word this week is from the Gospel of Mark. This is one of the great stories about Jesus, one that I love. And in fact, in some ways, I think this story is almost a parable for the Christian life. You'll know the story. It's in several of the Gospels, and it goes like this. That day when evening came, Jesus said to his disciples, "Let us go over to the other side." Leaving the crowd behind, they took him along just as he was in the boat. There were also other boats with him. A furious squall came up, and the waves broke over the boat so that it was nearly swamped. Jesus was in the stern, sleeping on a cushion. The disciples woke him and said to him, "Teacher, don't you care if we drown?" He got up, rebuked the wind, and said to the waves, "Quiet, be still." Then the wind died down and it was completely calm. He said to his disciples, "Why are you so afraid? Do you still have no faith?" They were terrified and asked each other, "Who is this? Even the wind and the waves obey him." So just a few thoughts about this episode in Jesus' life and ministry, as I said, as sort of a parable of the Christian life. There are a few things that I think this shows us, and this might be particularly appropriate for this time that we're in right now. And the first is that sometimes Jesus takes you through storms. The reason they were in this storm is because Jesus needed to get to the other side of the lake. He said, "Let's go to the other side." There was something he had to do. He had some plan. He had some agenda, and he took them along. They were part of his plan. And in that plan, as it was being carried out, there was this storm that they encountered because of his decision. So what that means, that should be encouraging to us. It means that all of the storms that we encounter in life are not because of bad luck. It's not that we're in the wrong place at the wrong time, but it's that we are part of some great plan, some agenda, and Jesus is including us in that. And in order to get where he wants to go, and us with him, we have to go through a storm. I think we need to be careful about the way we express that. We're not at all saying that bad things are good or that evil things are good. Storms, in this sense, are bad. They're part of life in a fallen world. They're something we're not going to have to deal with when we get to heaven. But we would say that in this life, we have this wonderful confidence because of the resurrection that Jesus is going to take those storms that we go through and somehow use them for good. So we have that truth. We also see that sometimes when God's people go through storms, we panic. And the disciples did. They panicked in this storm. And it's interesting to me how their panic was expressed. It was expressed really in anger. They said, "Lord, don't you care that we drowned?" They were, kind of bailing for their lives, rowing for their lives, and here Jesus was sleeping, and you can hear some anger and frustration in their voice. And of course, that's often true with us. We go through a storm of some sort, and confusion, anger takes over. That's sometimes the way that we tend to respond. It's interesting, if you read just before this in Mark, things were going great. I mean, Jesus' ministry was expanding, crowds were coming, the disciples were getting all excited that his apostolic or his messianic calling is becoming evident. I can almost imagine that when they got in the boat that evening to go over to the other side, they were just, on cloud nine, and we're probably saying, "Isn't God good? Look at all the great things God is doing." And then, just a very short time, this storm hits, and they're panicking and angry and questioning. And of course, it's obvious, isn't it? God doesn't change. I mean, he's just as good before the storm as he is in the midst of the storm. And yet, I find this to be I find this to be comforting, that these disciples of Jesus panicked. It reminds me that they were men and ordinary believers just as we are. So here's the other little part of this episode that I think is helpful, and that is that Jesus wants you to think when you're in storms and put your faith to work. He calms the storm with his supernatural power, and then he turns to the disciples and he asks them two questions. He says, why are you still afraid? Do you still have no faith? You know, that first question is intended to get them thinking. And I think this shows us that faith is not, putting in your mind into neutral and not thinking. Faith is really, putting your mind into gear and thinking through these things. I mean, Jesus is all powerful. The Lord Jesus is with us. We're part of some great plan of His, some agenda. We're part of it. He said we're going to go to get to the other side. You tell yourself these things. You think about these things, and of course, as you do, then your faith is strengthened and renewed. You're actually kind of putting your faith to work. Well, I think all of these are applicable to this circumstance we're in now with the virus pandemic. Certainly, this is a storm. It's been interesting to me as I read the news to see how utterly undone and panicked some people are over this. And of course, that shouldn't be us. But if we have, then what do we need to do? We need to think. We need to think about the greatness of God and the presence of Christ and put our faith to work. Well, this Sunday we will have another video service available for you. We'll be sending you something on Friday or Saturday about that. And we look forward to worshiping via Facebook and YouTube, but we're really looking forward to the Sunday soon when we're together as a church body in the flesh. Well, until then, goodbye and God bless you.